Do you remember back in the day when CDPR was planning to add multiplayer to Cyberpunk 2077? Initially, they were describing a full standalone AAA experience, but then they moved on to a more iterative approach until eventually multiplayer for Cyberpunk was scrapped completely. And this was more than just a fleeting thought from CDPR. It was talked about through multiple earnings calls, and you could definitely see the potential of a Grand Theft Auto Online-like multiplayer in Night City, except it was cancelled, right? No, yeah, it was cancelled, but modders are adding it back in, as there's been one mod author implementing multiplayer to Cyberpunk 2077 for almost 3 years now, and this has had an insane amount of progress to show. So the Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer mod is known as CyberMP, and it's largely being developed by just one person over the past few years. And there is a lot done on this mod. The simple component of just 2 people playing Cyberpunk 2077 together is largely implemented in a rough state at this point. And that is kind of the crazy part about this mod. I feel like for a lot of you, you might only be learning about it for the first time right now, but this mod has had years of progress. Yes, its goals are ambitious, but there's a lot of work done already, and you may even be surprised at how soon you could be playing this one. You can see movements and even many combat mechanics are synchronized between players connected to a server, and earlier this year, getting more specific things to function was a priority, and this ended up being a success. So now it's not just general movements that are synchronized, but a lot of the more specific and unique animations. Basic stuff like crouching and walking are here, or even every Cyberpunk 2077 player's favorite activity of vaulting onto things, but also some of the more complex animations like sprinting into a slide or even using ladders. And swimming was recently implemented and functional for both players connected to the server. And for some of this actually may be harder than you think, because the animations you see in Cyberpunk 2077 are in first person. You're seeing them from the first person perspective, but of course with a multiplayer mod, you need to see them from the third person perspective for everyone else. So a variety of animations do need to be reworked for a mod like this. And since I do know some of you are wondering, yes, even PvP is a functional component of the mod now, but of course lots of work needs to be done in synchronization overall, making sure things between 2 players line up properly, and that things are displaying the same for everyone on the server, but progress here is being made too. So now all of the things in the game world, like objects, cars, and even lootables, are synced across players, as well as the possibility for multiple worlds has even been added in already. And they've also implemented the Chromium embedded framework, which is absolutely awesome. Yeah, I didn't know what that was either, but this is a framework that makes things like chatting with other players, whether it be via voice chat or even just in a familiar text chat, possible, and this has already been implemented. Here we get an early look at assigning our name to chat with, but in a later update video you can see how much progress was made in just a few months. The chat was overhauled and a bunch of commands implemented so you could do things like teleport around, spawn vehicles to mess with, and more. And there are plans to expand this even further, and you can start to see where the vision for this multiplayer mod comes in. Custom scripting systems are implemented so a hypothetical server owner could develop their own things for their Cyberpunk multiplayer server. As of right now, C# can be used to create scripts, and as an example of this in action, the custom UI you're seeing in the video, which is far more minimal compared to the vanilla UI, is thanks to the server-side scripting and not an extra mod. And you can see from these videos that a pretty insane amount of progress is done already, so I know the big question for many of you is a release date. When can you actually play this? And although no concrete release date has been shared, it's also not like things are several years away. In the most recent update from just 3 weeks ago, the mod author describes, "I want to say that the server is 90% ready. All I will need to add is only new setters in the future and other useful functionality that is done quite simply. Well, a small bug fix to finish, bugs like a little left on the server. So who knows, perhaps you'll be able to play Cyberpunk 2077 with a friend in not that long." And speaking directly with the mod author, the goal with this mod is likely something quite similar to what CDPR had in mind with their own Cyberpunk multiplayer. The mod author describes wanting to create something similar to 5M in Grand Theft Auto 5, a proper platform where users can host and customize their own servers for specific experiences. So creating a server for something like a deathmatch mode, role-playing, battle royale, or more. And we aren't even in the functionality stage of development. The author describes being in the polish and refinement stage, making sure things are properly stable and then on to some visual enhancements for animations. I'll have a link to the mod's Discord down below, but do you want to romance Aurore? One of the biggest complaints I saw from players of Phantom Liberty was the plethora of flirting but complete lack of fun. Well, mod authors are solving that issue as well. Deceptius, the author behind many of the existing romance mods for Cyberpunk 2077, is also working on an Aurore Romance Mod. It'll feature a simple quest where at the party where you meet Aurore, she'll slip you a hotel room key, and later on you can meet up for some loving. And if you're disappointed that even still CDPR hasn't implemented full-on cyberpsychosis, don't worry because we're getting a bit closer with the next update to Wannabe Edgerunner. This mod originally implemented new limitations and certain nerfs your character would get by using too much cyberware. Of course, it has to be completely overhauled with the changes made with patch 2.0, and as a part of this new overhaul, there's now going to be an automated system where if you do go into cyberpsychosis, Max Tack will hunt you down. But enemies in Night City are also getting an upgrade. Enemies of Night City is an existing mod that gives enemies new abilities to use, making combat far more interesting. And honestly, it was one of my favorite mods until of course it was broken with patch 2.0. But this mod is not only being updated, but also overhauled for the 2.0 patch. As recently a discovery was made that you can now use animations and VFX from one character and apply them to another for some hilarious and horrifying results. Needless to say that there are going to be far more intense boss fights with the coming update to this mod. But another pretty cool mod that is on the way and actually in beta right now is Night City Rewind. This one will allow you to restart completed activities in Night City just by using a console command, although in the future there may be a UI element. So let's say you cleared through all of the NCPD scanner hustles and just want more general combat. You could use this mod to simply reset one and complete it a second time, or even a third time. And in general, I think it's pretty cool to see this from a technical perspective. It feels like Cyberpunk 2077 modding will hit a new level after things from patch 2.0 settle. But what is my absolute favorite mod, or at least was for Cyberpunk 2077, was Time Dilation Overhaul. This mod added in a whole bunch of new types of Sandevistans featuring tons of unique and new abilities for your character. Unfortunately with 2.0 it's broken and an update may take a while. But one mod that is a bit more hands-on but can serve as somewhat of a replacement is Sandevistan Customization. This one will implement a full settings menu for the various types of Sandevistan in the game, so you could further modify each of the various stats that Sandevistan will touch. This can be used for some ridiculous combinations, like extreme slow time to the point where enemies can barely move now, or just full-on damage resistances, so you could basically become a tank for the duration. Obviously, this isn't balanced like at all. You have full control over the settings just from a menu, but if you were hoping to tweak some of your Sandevistans a bit, this is the perfect mod for that. And while it definitely can get somewhat cheaty depending on what exactly you're doing, this is one of those mods that it's very easy to have hours of fun with. Each of the various settings are tied to just one type of Sandevistan, so you could actually modify a whole bunch at once and try all kinds of unique or new combinations, whether this be playing into certain synergies that already partially existed but now making them far stronger, or just go full on ridiculous and wreak havoc in Night City. As of right now, it's not even entirely clear if Time Dilation Overhaul will be getting an update, and if it does, it may be a while before we see it. So for the time being, if you're somebody who is really leaning into Sandevistan, which becomes even more fun with patch 2.0 and some of the other new abilities on your character, this is one of the few mods out there right now that allows you to dive a bit deeper into it. With that said, I think there's one overhaul you do need for Cyberpunk 2077, that with this romance overhaul, so check out this video for more details on that.